everybody, it's Kim here with Jessica's Reading Room, and we are going to do the February book wrap-up. We are going to have to take care of one little thing though, and that is the fact that I made January's wrap-up video too early because we were leaving to go to Hawaii on like January 29th. So pretty sure I accidentally read a couple of more books before I made the video. After I made the video. So we're going to talk about those really quick and then we're going to move into February. We're going to make this really fast though. For January, that I didn't mention because I finished these books after I did the January wrap up, we have Everless by Sarah Holland. Okay, this is an absolutely fabulous cover that I am absolutely in love with. The story was actually pretty good too. It's definitely on the darker side. It's dark YA fantasy in a world where time is used as currency that you can physically take out of your blood and turn into little iron blocks, and that's how you pay for everything. Jules basically is trying to get up enough time to allow her and her father to survive, and unfortunately, in order to get this time, she ends up going back to work at an estate that she and her father used to work at, but then had to flee from after they saw something that they shouldn't have. Basically, she uncovers this big conspiracy involving the royal family and the family that owns Everless, the estate, and it just turns into this big, huge thing. This is also the one where I liked the villain better than the good guy. I don't know if that was supposed to happen, but it did. So this is a really good book. There you go. And then the one that I read on the plane going over to Hawaii in the 14-ish hours it took us to get there is Literally by Lucy Keating. I think the review has already been posted. Basically, the character, let me look to make sure I say it correctly, Annabelle, goes to her creative writing class. There is a best-selling author who shows up. Her name is Lucy Keating, and basically she tells Annabelle that she is just one of the characters in a story that she's writing, and basically she's just trying to use her to write a good book. Annabelle then spends the rest of the novel trying to prove that she should be able to write her own story and that Keating has no right whatsoever to plan out her story for her. It was an okay book. It passed the time on the flight. There was a little too much teenage drama for me. The review's already on the page. There you go. I'm glad I read it. Would I necessarily recommend it? Probably not. So there you go. Okay, so that was January. We're now done with January. Boom. There you go. So now we're going to head into February, which unfortunately I didn't get as much reading done as I normally do because when we were over in Hawaii, Ivan had us going. We did all those touristy things that I didn't get to do when I was living there. So we honestly had very little time to just sit and do nothing. So unfortunately, what we lack in quantity this month, we make up for in some good quality. So there you go. All right, so I will start with The Asylum for Wayward Victorian Girls by Emily Autumn. Also an amazing cover. There you go. This book was fantastic. It was definitely on the dark and creepy side, and for those of you who have been following us for a while, you know that Asylum is a nice big trigger warning. Trigger warning? Is it a trigger warning if it's good? If you've liked something? I don't know. But anytime I see Asylum, psychiatric hospital, mental facility, anything like that, I automatically jump on it. So I got this one for Christmas. You basically follow a girl named Emily who survives a suicide attempt. Her psychiatrist recommends that she voluntarily commit herself for a 24-hour psych evaluation. She goes to her local hospital. She ends up having to stay for several weeks, even though she didn't expect to, and she starts getting notes from another girl named Emily who was committed to the asylum for wayward Victorian girls. And the author, Emily, so we have a lot of Emilys in this book. So the author, Emily, does this great job of weaving the modern health system in with past health system, and you get to, that kind of compares and contrasts, showing the problems with each, showing some of the good things with each. But I have to admit, there were some little slow parts, but holy cow, overall this is a pretty fantastic read. It had me going. I loved the way she delves into the thoughts behind suicide and how women were treated in the past, and it just now that I'm finished with it and I look back, seriously, it was really good. I would not say this is safe for teenagers, but pretty much for everybody else, you want a good read, you're going to have a good read in this one. So there you go. All right, then, that one I also finished on the plane in the middle of flying overnight. So 8-hour flight through the night. After I was done with that, I decided to pick up this one, which probably was not a smart idea to do when you went for several hours without sleep. Which might explain why I didn't completely get this book, to be 100% fair. So, okay. Now we have All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stiefvater. I assume that's how you say her name. I'm so sorry, Maggie, for slaughtering your last name. There you go. I liked this book. It certainly is not my favorite, and I would probably not pick it up again. It's definitely on the more cerebral side of things, as in less action, more thinking kind of thing. I'm a shallow person, so the fact that I didn't get it probably doesn't mean much. I think I understood it. Basically, there's a family who lives out west. They emigrated from Mexico back about 100 years ago. They're a family who performs miracles. Basically, pilgrims come from all over the place to have the saint perform a miracle, and it's two parts. The saint will perform the first miracle, the first part of the miracle, which brings the darkness dwelling within the pilgrim to light. And it manifests itself in several ways. For instance, there's a priest who had a problem with lust. So after the first part of the miracle was performed, he ended up with the head of a wolf. Not going to pretend to understand every single bit of it, but that's just what happened. And once the first part of the miracle has been performed, the family does not have anything else to do with the pilgrims. The pilgrims have to figure out the second part of the miracle, how to get themselves out of the darkness. They have to figure that out themselves. So basically, it's this nice big family saga where they're trying to figure out how they're going to handle things once one of their own interferes with the second part of a miracle, how they try to figure out how to help him. Overall, it was a pretty good book. For someone who's not as shallow as me, it'll probably get it a lot better. So there you go. But the cover is pretty. So there you go. At least, it's got a pretty cover, and it was a good story. So I can't really say anything bad about it. So there you go. Okay, then we have Dreadlocks by Neal Shusterman. Mr. Shusterman is easily becoming one of my all-time favorite authors. Easily. I read Scythe and Thunderhead. Y'all heard me talking about that last month. I went to a book signing in Charleston where I met Mr. Shusterman, and frankly, he's easily becoming one of my all-time favorite authors. He's that good. Dreadlocks is part of I think it's a trilogy of standalone stories. It's basically dark retellings of fairy tales mixed in with a little bit of Greek myth. And this is a retelling of The Three Bears with a little bit of Greek mythology mixed in. I'm not going to tell you which Greek myth because I think you're supposed to read it and figure that out as you go along. It's really, really good. Making sure I'm getting all the names right here. Parker ends up meeting the new girl who moves into his neighborhood. He realizes that there's something a little off about her, and basically this book is all about Parker trying to figure out what exactly her offness is, and it's totally worth it because the ending is the bomb. Diggity! Holy cow! Loved this book a lot, and it's nice and short. Look, it's nice and short. It's not hard to read at all. I ended up reading this book because I was waiting for another book to come from Amazon, and it was really, really good. So I really like this. This is a perfect teen book. If you have a teen who doesn't like reading, but they want to get into reading, this would be a good book to give them because it's really good. So there you go. So there's Neal Shusterman. Yay! Okay, now this one's gonna be tough. All right, because this. Okay, let's just get into it and you'll figure it out. Okay, so A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I read this book back in 2016. I found it at Ollie's for like $5, and I mean, you should have heard me squeal. I was shopping with my mom, and I like squealed. She's like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want this book!" So I grabbed it, and when I read it the first time, I wasn't entirely sure that I got it. All right, look, this is going to be a theme. I'm a relatively shallow person, so I don't actually get everything. But I mean, the first time I read it, I think I got it. All I know is that by the time I got to the end of this book, I burst into ugly, crying, heavy sobs, hard to get myself under control crying. That does not happen very often. I think in my review I said this was one of 2 books, and actually I remembered that it's actually one of 3 books. But that's something we can talk about later. Then I read it again this year because after reading Dreadlocks, I still had a little time before that book came from Amazon. So I was like, okay, well, this one won't take me long, and I'm just going to go ahead and subject myself to more emotionalness. So I decided to read it again. I was a little worried that reading it for a second time, I was going to say, oh no, sure, yeah, caught me off guard last time, but this time I know what's happening. It won't be nearly as potent as it was. No, it was definitely as potent as it was. It's about a kid whose mother has been diagnosed with cancer, and the entire book is basically how he copes with her illness. The yew tree, Y-E-W, tree, that is in the churchyard behind their house ends up coming to life and coming to see him and saying that I'm going to tell you 3 stories. Once I'm done telling you the 3 stories, you have to tell me a story and you have to tell me the truth. And so basically it's just going through how this kid is dealing with his mother's illness, dealing with the monster, and yeah, no, by the time I got to the end again, all right, poor Ivan was, the first time I read it, my mother-in-law was over, and thank goodness she left to go out and look at the flowers on our camellia bushes, because I'm not even joking, the second she walked out of the room, I broke down in tears. I mean, broke down in tears. So this time, I was reading it where I knew no one was going to be coming over. Ivan was sitting on the other side of the couch working on one of his Legos, and again, broke down, ugly crying, sobbing, trying to be quiet, but yet couldn't actually be quiet. And so then Ivan looks up at me and he's just looking at me like, what do I do? What's going on? Holy crap. And I mean, I cried more in this than I did after reading Wonder, which I cried a lot during that and during the movie. So this is a pretty bad book in all the best ways, if that makes any kind of sense. This is a perfect book to give, I mean, this is the perfect gloomy day reading if you're feeling moody, if you're PMSing, if you know someone who's got a family member who is sick, if you know someone who is hurting. I mean, this is the perfect book if you're just feeling down and you want to let all of it out. This book, believe me, it'll bring it all to the surface, and it will just all come pouring out. Believe me. So there you go. I have nothing but good things to say about this book, even though it took my heart and broke it and then stomped on it. So there you go. All right. Now this, gonna kind of cheat just a little bit. Right now, I am in the middle of book 4 of a series. It's the last book. I started it today, and I'd say a good quarter, maybe third way through it. Then after I finish that one, I've got a book of short stories, and then I will be done with the series. We'll have a review posted for you. I'm going to write the review as a series, but we're just going to go ahead and include it in the February wrap-up because I'm almost done with it. So there you go. So this lovely thing is the Unwind series by Neal Shusterman. The man is a genius. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right now. He is a genius. If you read Scythe and Thunderhead and you're still not convinced that he's a genius, then you need to read this series because he's a genius. All right. He has this way of dealing with controversial issues and showing you all the gray that's in between, and he'll show you both sides of the coin and the edge around the coin. And even when he's dealing with the bad guys, when they're trying to justify themselves, you actually agree with them to a certain extent, but then they take things too far. So there you go. I mean, he's brilliant. He did it in Scythe and Thunderhead. He's doing it in Unwind. The man is a genius. Okay, he is a genius. I end up feeling really stupid that I don't sit around and philosophize like he does. I guess that, I don't know, maybe I'm just too shallow for philosophizing. I don't know. But basically, the Unwind dystology takes place in America in the future after a war has been fought over abortion. Last thing I want to do is to get all political, so I'm going to try and not get political. But there was a war between the Life Army and the Choice Brigade, and they came up with a compromise called the Bill of Life, basically saying that a child from conception to the age of 12, their life is sacred, they cannot be touched. But starting at the age of 13 through 18, parents have the option, for whatever reason, to have their kids unwound. Basically meaning that they are surgically dismembered and their parts used to help other people. By this time, they've discovered the way of actually transplanting parts of the body to where they are perfectly transplanted. That's getting into the medical that I'm not going to lie to you. I have absolutely no idea how that works. But basically, they are able to transplant any part of the body, including brain material and even full brains, onto another person to help them because of whatever part they end up missing. They are able to transplant it. So basically, the entire series is all about these kids who are set to be unwound, who end up fighting the system. And I think I know which side of the argument Shusterman is on. I think, again, I could be wrong, but I think I know which side of the argument he's on, and he's using hyperbolic satire, like that, hyperbolic satire, to get his point across. And it's really good. All right, I don't want to tell you anything else because I don't want to ruin the series, but it's really, really good. He writes unique fiction that no one else has written. I'd never heard of this kind of thing, and it's unique fiction. The characters are really likable. There's very little teenage drama. Very little in book number 3, Unsold. There was a little bit of teenage drama, but it was really quick. And frankly, I'm not seeing too much of it in the 4th book, so I'm like, okay, that's fantastic. And I really can't wait to find out what happens. I'm not a big series person, just because I have a fear of commitment when starting a book series, because I'm just like that. I don't know. I don't know. But this one, I don't even question whether or not I'm going to pick up the next book. By the time I finish a book, I just reach straight over to the box and grab the next book, and there you go. It's really, really good. So Neal Shusterman is becoming one of my all-time favorite authors. Here's one reason why. So there you go. So that's what I've read for the month of February, adding in a little bit to the end of January. There you go. To keep with tradition, because y'all seem to like the best and worst reads of the month, this one's really tough because I didn't read anything bad this month. So, but I am going to say worst read, it was by no means bad, but just the weakest of the month, I would say, was All the Crooked Saints. Again, it wasn't bad, unlike last month. But this one, it wasn't bad. It was just not my favorite of the month, if that makes any kind of sense. So there you go. Doing best is really tough. So we're going to cheat just a little bit, and we're going to say best standalone book versus best series. I think you'll figure out which series I'm talking about. I think best standalone would be The Asylum for Wayward and Victorian Girls. For Wayward Victorian Girls. Yeah, I think that's my favorite standalone. And then Unwound would be my favorite series. I know, that's kind of cheating. I'm sorry, but I had a good month, okay? I mean, like I said, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So there you go. So there's February, a little bit of January. So hopefully we actually fix that. Gonna try and keep all my months straight from now on. But there you go, that's February. Had a great reading month. Make sure you let us know what you've been reading down in the comments. Give us your thoughts, your feedback. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. I am thinking about possibly doing a library / bookshelf tour. I've seen it on YouTube and I think it's pretty cool. And not to brag, but I have a really fantastic and beautiful library. So if y'all want to see it, let me know what you think. For next month, we've got more series coming up. That was one of my New Year's resolutions, was to try and read more series this year. So we are going to have more series coming up, and we'll have more series reviews. So there you go. Had a great month of February. Hopefully going to have a great month of March. Let us know what y'all are thinking. Let us know what you're reading. Share us with everybody that you know. And everybody have an awesome March. Get lots of reading done. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.